big topic today where I'm going to expose my own dysfunction to help you guys understand, if you already haven't understood already, uh, what kind of world we live in. Happy Friday! Welcome to my YouTube channel. So yesterday I was in a store getting groceries. I just picked up my son from school, and I was at the end of it's at Winco. It's WINCO. It stands for like Washington, Idaho, Nevada, Colorado, and Oregon, I think, because it's actually a co-op. It's pretty cool because I think it's over 50% employee owned. So everyone loves Winco, and the employees actually help to decide what groceries get sold there. So, like, if you're going to go grocery shopping in the Northwest, everyone loves Winco. It's better than Fred Meyer or any of the other ones, but that's beside the point. So, uh, I was at the end of the aisle, I just parked my cart there. Groceries coming down, bagging them, throwing them in the cart. Lady next to me has parked her cart kind of backwards, right, where she's got the handle up next to her, where she's got bagging her groceries. And I could tell that she was just kind of a stern older woman who wasn't very. She kind of had a sour look on her face already, right? Like she wasn't having fun that day, and maybe never has fun. I don't know. One of the store clerks came by and said, "Hey, ma'am, you need to turn your cart around so to bag. It's easier to bag your groceries, right? Instead of, right." And the point of this message is the way a message is given will have a large impact on how it's received, right? She looked over and she was just like, "I'm fine. My cart is just fine the way it is," and just kind of gave the impression it's like, "Get out of my face, woman." And so I just kind of, silently observing. I mean, she's standing right across from me, and after a minute or so, her husband kind of come up, and the store clerk, the other lady, kind of walked off, kind of almost tried to argue with her a little bit, and it's like, "I just trying to help you, turn your crunch." And I said, "I'm fine. Leave me alone." And so I just kind of made a joking comment, as she was bagging her groceries. I said, "Well," so she complained to her husband as her husband walked up. It's like, "Yeah, that lady." It's like, and I said something on the lines of, "Well, the cart police showing up. Gotta do what the cart police say." And he just kind of laughed. But if she would have come up, and to me, it was like two similar mindsets clashed right there, right? Like attracts like, where you've got two people in the same energetic state, where one person is, you know, doesn't want to be bothered, especially when somebody has advice for them. It's like, I don't want to be bothered, right? Even if it's that advice is going to make things easier for them. Kind of like the mindset is not open to learning, very stern about their own ideas about what's right for them, and they not accepting anybody else's perspectives. And the other woman, the way she approached it was kind of even in the same way. Even though she was trying to help, she didn't do it in a way that was empathic, like coming up to us, "Hey, can I give you some advice? If you turn your cart around, it might be easier to get the bags in there." Instead of directly telling her what to do, just saying, "Hey, do you mind if I help you with something?" She probably would have been grudgingly open to accepting help that way, instead of the way it was delivered, if that makes sense. I'm sure you guys are aware of this, right? When it comes to working together as teams, and this is something that happens. We come out of, in bigger businesses, especially corporate settings. So many people have any ideas about how things should be run, right? And ideas clash nonstop. They just bounce off one another. And people end up fighting over that stuff, right? I mean, and the reason that they fight is they're trying to protect their own self image, right? We have this idea that we're trying to protect the ego and our own self image to make sure that our self worth is good. It's like, hey, this is what needs to be done, right? We have our own ideas instead of just letting the ego go and saying, you know what, just let the direction, the group, whatever you guys want to do, I'm here to support you. I can input my ideas, but if you guys don't, you know, how well they're receptive depends on how open everyone is to change and learning and growing, right? I mean, that's the perspective that we all have to have. But and our faith that that is possible. For me, myself, I have definitely suffered from a lack of faith that I could actually convince somebody that they needed to go in a different direction, right? Because I've been through it. I've been in work environments where I tried my best to try and get people to help them see that just listening to one another and just taking the time to, it's worth it to take the time to follow the control circuit, especially in an organization where if you're not connected with the work, you have no position in giving your opinion on which direction the work needs to go. Right now, you have an opinion on your end of the work and then how that impacts the other work, but then you need to listen to how that work is. Work clashes all the time. This is not as important as what I'm getting ready to say, though, because there's different levels of pride, right? We all have different ways that we're trying to protect ourselves. And unknowingly, these mechanisms that we have to protect ourselves are actually ways that cause ourselves harm without even realizing it, because it actually pushes people away. And I've done this for most of my life, right? Very empathic, but then you're also like, all right, you know, when you protect your energy, you go back, introspect. Too much introspection really, you know, causes too much protection, and then you're less open to other perspectives of other people, right? So it leads to just a lot of long-term group dysfunction where everyone's going in their own direction, and which is why there's so many different types of emotional feeding in the group collective. When you first start the entrepreneur process, you know, you might have friends and family who have different opinions on what you're doing, right? At first, maybe they could be supportive at first, but depending on how long it takes for you to be successful, could lead to long-term depreciation of how they view you, right? So you're constantly overcoming that over time, which directly impacts your ability to be productive and creative, right? When you're getting less and less support from your environment. Maybe they're friends who, you know, you've got friends who are working full time, and this is for me. So sometimes those self-defense mechanisms, which is what I went through, right? When I'm trying to focus on, you know, let's say a year and a half after I've quit my job and I'm still not making money, you know, I'm just focusing on trying to stay productive and trying to keep from thinking negatively about my, you know, own position, and just doing my best to stay detached from the outcome. If you've got other people that say no longer talk to you, because for one thing, they know that you're broke, right? So then they generally don't want to reach out, right? Because they know that they're going to be footing the bill if you guys go hang out together, if you go have a meal or whatever, go get a drink, whatever, you know. Maybe that's not the case, but if it is, you know, even if it's not the case, generally feel uncomfortable because they're working every day and you're not, in their mind, right? Even though you are probably working more than you've ever worked before, whether it's internal work or external work, where you're doing your best to provide something for the community. um, there's just conflicting perspectives. And so a lot of times, I was in the middle of personally still getting rid of toxicity, right? Because I was in an old work environment where I was getting rid of toxicity. And so you end up protecting yourself in ways that are toxic, right? Maybe shutting people off unintentionally, unconsciously, not even on purpose, right? I mean, in your heart, you say, you're trying to love everybody as well as you can, but it is what it is, right? And the only thing you can do is continue to be open, continue to be loving, and then don't be afraid to reach out and express your concerns. Say, hey, look, I'm sorry, for a long time, I was just trying to get rid of. You don't even realize the unconscious things that you're doing, that of energy you're getting rid of, right? Negative viewpoints about your own path, or if you've got too much stuff where you're negatively viewing the future, and all that wasted energy is bleeding out. And so when you are contacting other people, it's just, if they get negatively impacted by your presence, they're going to stop wanting to reach out to you, right? And a lot of times you might not even realize what you're doing. And I saw that at the grocery store when I saw these two women talking to one another. It was just eye-opening. Not only that, but when somebody reaches out and tries to help, and you're closed off to it because you don't understand how they're trying to help, right? So all these ways that people are in different emotional states, you've got this pyramid. It's almost like a pyramid scheme of ascending emotional states where you can get to unconditional love and be in the right state of mind for anybody around you. But depending on how many barriers somebody's put up will depend on how well they can feel what it is that you're trying to do to help them. This is the most difficult part for trying to help anybody, right? When they are open to it and understand that maybe what you're offering could be helpful, and at the same time, when people offer to help you, or people have offered to help me, I would like to think that I haven't ever turned down someone's help, but at the same time, I haven't. I've been more closed off, and this is perfectly honest. I've been more and more closed off to people who've wanted to sell me a service to attempt to help, but it's like I've done that so many times in the past, and I don't know how many of you guys are in the same position, have paid people to do things, and it just nothing came from it, right? I'd give you some examples, but it's pointless, right? I mean, lead generation is one thing, right? Unless you're doing the work yourself, you probably should be. If you're trying to help the public in any way, you guys should be working on your own messaging, right? If you're paying somebody to do that, you're not learning how you need to present yourself in front of people, which goes back to this original message. The way a message is given is the way it's received. I personally have fought with the idea of that we're a whole, right? We are a whole. Now, how do you provide that message, right? If you're whole, then how do you make money off of the fact that we're all whole? It's pretty hard to do that one, right? So the best thing you can do is just to co-create. Either be creative, and that's why there's so many creators on YouTube. Creators, are just creating and naturally attracting everything they need. Whereas, there's another way of being where you're constantly pulling off of your environment in different ways emotionally. If that makes sense to you guys. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, we like to see somebody on their YouTube channel who are in their natural play-like energy, right? Whereas we don't want to watch somebody that's just in a negative emotional state. So here it is on Friday. I'm just talking about this stuff, but I mean, this is the energetic emotional play that you see in the group collective, right? The further far you're down into negative emotional states, the more that you're forced to feed off of your environment. And the higher you go into higher states of awareness where you're just doing what you love, you'll just naturally attract what you need, right? And then, but here's the kicker. Then people that have achieved that are much less likely to want to partner with people who haven't, right? And then some people say, and this is a divine perspective, they say, well, those people aren't ready to receive yet, so why would the divine, if you're trying to partner with somebody who's not ready yet, then you're not going to get your blessings. Now, is that true? I don't know. Is that true? They're already being provided for. They're just working a lot harder for it, right? They're working through a lot of fears and anxiety. They already have it. So how do you teach people that there's a better way? Is there a better way? Are the mechanisms that we have created create this feeding frenzy, right? What if we created something that doesn't create the feeding frenzy, that forces people to realize that if they're looking at anybody negatively, it's their own problem, because everyone over here is being treated the same way that they are. Maybe they're all making the same amount of money. They have the access to the same amount of abundance, having a grounding effect on your environment. And a lot of people would say, well, that's not the way things work. It's like, well, just because nobody's tried it before, I mean, all you got to do is create a mechanism so that you can push that toxicity out of your environment. I mean, that's why people, and me included, would never want to go back to the traditional business model, because as a team, if I'm working with 6 or 7 other people to create something, we didn't have the power to get rid of the person that we needed to push out of the group, or to discipline one another, right? We don't have the power to do that. That's a third party has the power to do that, which means it's totally dysfunctional, right? And that's not how your body works. If you have a foreign body inside the body, the tissue surrounding it have every right and ability to push that foreign body out of that area, right? Why aren't we creating systems that are like that? I was talking to my brother about this the other day, how Native Americans in the way that they were here before, people from from Europe came over here, the way that they were operating was very indicative of a natural organism, right? Tribes that were productive, that were creating things, would trade with other tribes. Now, the fact that they were trading things, people say, well, are we going back to a barter system? Well, we're trading something, right? We're trading money now instead of actual things, but we're valuing things differently and prioritizing the money, which means we're not focusing on the fact that all we're doing is trying to provide something for our environment and our community. But the ones who were not productive and didn't work well together created tribes to steal from those other tribes, right? So the reason that they were trading with other tribes was to verify that those other tribes were productive and building their own things, skins, clothing, things that they could trade, seeds. Whereas tribes that weren't doing that were just there to rob them, right? So, I mean, there's two mindsets: people that work well together and see, things or people that just see survival of the fittest and just take. And when you look at the way that people stole has become more and more complicated. It's become mind control. And now you've got a group collective who have actually bought into that complex mind control mechanism that forces you to take from your environment, or you're not going to be provided for. think of it this way: if somebody's in a negative emotional state, it would be really easy for somebody who to say, "Hey, I can do this for you if you pay me this." And if your awareness isn't good enough, and say, "Well, I just don't have what you have. I need it," and don't understand that I can't give that to you, but I can give you a process to master yourself over time and love yourself unconditionally. Maybe I can provide some healing energy that would lift you up and make you understand that you don't have to. I mean, I see a lot of advertisements, on Facebook, spiritual activators or whatever, saying that, just a simple class can get you into an energetic state where you'll just start to naturally attract everything you need. Um, is that true? Can that really happen? I don't know. I know times that, there's no doubt when you go to a Reiki healer, you go to someone to make you feel good, that it has a lasting effect. It's like, oh, it felt so good. But does it create a long-term effect for your own state of being and growth? I don't think so. Never witnessed it. And there's no written testimony. It's always about self-discovery and mastering of the self over time that creates long-term success internally, right? Doesn't matter what's out there. What's out there is constantly changing. But having patience with yourself and learning to master yourself and creating a daily schedule where you're staying grounded and doing the things that you need to do for yourself in a balanced way, between your creation and rest cycles. Somebody who's very creative, like an author who's constantly writing, is very successful. Stephen King's an example, right? I mean, probably one of the most successful writers of the 20th century. You know, something had to drive him to be successful. In some ways, they weren't. In a lot of ways, if they were too isolated, if you interviewed them or interacted with some of those people, maybe they didn't feel successful, right? Maybe they were suffering from some internal anxiety and never was able to interact with other people. Individual and group development is a tricky thing, right? Because all of us want to be creative, and we all want to be proud of what we're creating, but at the same time, we want to, at least I do, want to be part of a co-creative group that's a healthy way of creating things. And if I knew of something out there that had open admission, I'd be like, great, let's go, let's do it. At least, and the reason I would never be afraid of partnering with anybody is because I know that karmically I'm doing the right things for myself to make sure that I'm trying to provide healing energy for my environment. And people will self-sabotage, right? Maybe I would self-sabotage unconsciously. And if I did, I would have no problem going through that process to learn more about myself, learn more about how my discernment was lacking or good or bad, depending on the situation. It would be a learning experience. Don't ever be afraid of partnering with somebody, and this is my advice, never place material things above the opportunity to work with somebody, and even people that you've met before that maybe you had disagreements with, maybe you think that they might be holding a grudge, or you're unconsciously holding a grudge about something. Holding grudges doesn't do anybody any good, right? Everyone's growing and everyone's trying to offer something to try to support themselves, whether it's energetic readings or any kind of psychic work, or because we're psychically connected whether we realize it or not. And the more aware we are of ourselves, the more aware we are of where other people are at that we're around, right? And it's a learning process. So, how could I ever blame anybody for any action when I know I've, unconsciously unloaded toxicity on other people without even realizing it, right? A lot of times when people are unloading their toxicity on you, they're doing it unconsciously. And if you can get to a place where you no longer feel like you need to protect yourself, and you can just try to help somebody be aware and just walk away and cut that energy off, right? Because it'll try to feed off of you if it can. There's lots of different kinds of energy vampirism, right? I'm sure you guys are well aware where people are trying to feed off of you energetically. I mean, the best thing you can do is just try to make them aware of it in the nicest way possible and cut it off and let them do the work. Say, hey, look. And this is actually something that we're moving forward to in the group collective, right? We're moving toward the end of a long cycle. This is like a 24,000 year cycle. So this is a complete reset of the organism that we call Earth, right? And when you think about it, it's an evolutionary event, because if you get to a place where you're no longer looking externally at all for validation in the exterior world, then everything just becomes abundance. And no matter what it looks like, it becomes something that you're grateful for. No matter, and if you can get to that place where you're at peace internally, and it doesn't matter what's happening out there, then you're in the right place, right? And you really will, and for me personally, it's my desire to help you feel that way as well. So, thanks for coming to my YouTube channel. And I, like other people, will, and I'm sure as you, will do my best to try and reconcile with, anything in the past, to try and heal the people that, may have felt slighted by my toxicity in the past, right? We all do things that we're not proud of. But living in the past and regretting those things doesn't do anybody any good, me included, right? There's no reason to try and suffer over things that you've done in the past, only to acknowledge it and just grow and say, look, no reason to, I'm not going to do that anymore, right? I want to give this message to you guys today and just give you guys something to think about. Let's get one oracle card. I'm just going to get one oracle card, and then I'm going to leave you guys alone. So I have other things that I want to do today. Keep building my co-creative model. If you guys are interested in that model, or interested in helping me build that model, I'd love to hear from you. Because, I want to build something holistic where I don't know all the answers. And I sure as heck can tell you that I don't know all the answers. But I have ideas. And there are some things that I'm fairly rigid on, right? Because you want to balance group creativity and individual creativity. None of us want to be restricted in our individual creativity, but I would love to balance it with a group to create other things for one another. And in the long run, if we can connect in a healthy way in a large sphere, we can be self-sufficient without ever having to use money ever again. If we're in a healed state. Be like Star Trek 4. Cosmic connections. Cosmic connection. Right? Then that's when we start accessing cosmic connections. I mean, I'm maybe that's why I even thought of Star Trek 4, right? Because higher level beings, let's say fifth dimensional beings that are watching us, aren't using money, right? If they can pop in and out of fifth dimensional reality and pop and land in spaceships, they're not using any kind of currency, I guarantee you. And the reason why, and this is something I've known for a while, is because if you try to measure your time, you're acknowledging that it exists. It's not true, right? Everything is happening now. And if you really get that, you're accessing the group or the hive mind and the field of intelligence where you can pop in and out of three-dimensional reality, and you're popping into a higher reality. And that's why unconditional love is so powerful, because you're unconditionally loving all the lower energetic states. You're just not attached to them, right? So if you're not attached to them, you can enter at will, right? Somebody that needs help, you can enter that state without being attached to it and not having it negatively affect you, right? That's the main thing. Cosmic connection. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day. And I'll catch you on the next one.